Hi everyone, this is Heather. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I've got a little tag tutorial for you to make some fun tags to add to your holiday packages this year. So this one has Santa and his list, and it says do not open until Christmas. And this one has Mrs. Claus, and it says from all of us. And on the back you can stamp the to from. So these are really cute to add to your holiday gifts this year. So I'm using the Signs of Santa set from Stampin Up, and this is such a cute set. Sorry for my overhead lighting. And it's got the Santa, Mrs. Claus, a couple of cute elves, some really great North Pole signs, sentiments, stacks of presents, a little pull cart there. It's a really cute set. And then also I'm using the coordinating die cut set. I'll be using the die for Santa and Mrs. Claus, and then also the tiny tag that's in this set. In addition to those, I'm going to be using some stitched shapes. I'm using the second to the largest circle and the second to the largest oval stitched shape dies from Stampin' Up. And also I'm using two papers from the Farmhouse Christmas papers. And then just an extra piece of cream cardstock. I decided to stamp my images on the cream to kind of help them pop out away from the stark white just a little bit. And then I also am using a couple of about 12-inch pieces of white and red baker's twine. So I'm going to start off stamping with some Memento black ink because I'm going to be using some Stampin' Blends markers to color my images. So I'm going to stamp out my Santa and Mrs. Claus, and they don't need to be, straight on the paper or anything because we're going to be die cutting them out. So I'm getting my images stamped out, and then also on the paper I want to stamp both of the words, and we'll be die cutting those out with the tiny little tag die. Again, they don't really need to be straight because we're going to die cut them out. So I'm going to start coloring their skin, and for the base I'm going to be using ivory. Color in his ears and his face and hands. And do the same on Mrs. Claus. And I want to make sure I kind of avoid her glasses. So now that I've got the ivory down, I'm going to take dark pink pirouette, and I'm going to add some big cheeks to Santa, and of course he has to have kind of a red nose, so I'm going to add some color to the tip of his nose, and then I'm also going to give Mrs. Claus some nice big cheeks too. So there's our skin colored in. And so also with these same colors I'm going to do Santa's list, so it sort of has a little bit of a parchment look to it. So I'm just going to color in with the ivory. And then I'm going to go in with that pink again and add just a little bit of extra color just to give it some more dimension. Now I want to color Mrs. Claus's hair. I'm going to be using light and dark smoky slate. And I'm going to add just a few streaks, but I want some of that paper to still show through, so that gives her just a little bit of extra depth, so it looks like there's a couple of colors of gray with a little bit of white showing through to give her a little bit more of a realistic hair color. So there's Mrs. Claus's hair finished, and then I'm also going to use the dark smoky slate gray to do Santa's belt buckle. So Mrs. Claus has a little bit of holly in her hair, so I'm going to take the light old olive and just color in the leaves. And then for the reds I'm using light and dark cherry cobbler, and I'm going to color in the berries on top of her head and the heart and her dress, and I'm going to leave her collar and cuffs uncolored, and I'm just going to color in the entire thing with the light red. Now that I've colored in her dress with the light cherry cobbler, I'm going to go in with the dark and add a little bit of shading. So that just adds a little bit more dimension. And then to finish her off, I'm going to go back with the dark smoky slate and color in her apron. So this is really quick and easy coloring. You could do a lot more layers and shading and everything that you would like, but I just wanted to keep it pretty simple. So there she is finished. And now I'm going to go back to the two reds and I'm going to color in the top of Santa's hat. I'm going to leave the brim of his hat and the little pom-pom uncolored and also avoid his beard. Don't forget his little sleeve over there. And now I'm going in the same way with the darker red and add just a little bit of shading there. And so there is Mr. and Mrs. Claus all colored in. And now I'm going to bring over some repositionable tape. I'm going to position my dies over top of Mr. and Mrs. Claus, and I'm going to tape those into place so that they don't shift in my die cutting machine. So now that I have the dies taped around Mr. and Mrs. Claus, I'm going to take the tiny little tag die and I'm going to tape that in place over the words. When I run this through, I'm going to use this exact same tag again over top of the second set of words. And then on my pattern papers, I'm going to run the stitched oval on the red stripe and the circle on the plaid. So I've now run everything through my Big Shot machine. I'm going to stamp the to and the from on the back of the tags. If you wanted it to be solid, you could die cut another piece from solid cardstock, but I kind of like the pattern on the back. So I'm going to stamp those. And then I'm going to turn them over and try and keep, especially the circle one, a little straight. So I sort of know which is the top and the bottom. And now I'm going to adhere the tags, the little tiny tags, at the top with a little bit of adhesive, just so that they don't slip around. And now I've got a very tiny, hope you can see how little that hole punch is. This is a 1/16 inch hole punch. And I'm just going to line that up over top of the hole that was already made by the die cut tag and just punch through everything. I'm going to do that on both tags. Now that I have those teeny little holes punched at the top, I'm going to thread my baker's twine through, and it might take a couple little tries and you might even want to like wet the end of it to get it through the hole. So I'm just pulling that thread through the hole. I'm just going to do just a simple overhand knot and bow at the top. Don't pull too hard because you don't want it to tear through your pattern paper. Just going to tie a little bow. Just kind of play with it, get it the right length. I always leave plenty of extra ribbon or twine so that I've got enough to work with to make a good bow. And then I'm just gonna trim off the tails. I've got the bow at the top here. Now I'm gonna do this to the other tag as well. So now that I have the bows tied on both of my tags, I'm gonna put some foam tape on the back of Mr. and Mrs. Claus. So I've removed the backing paper and I'm just going to place those on my tags so they're popped up just a little bit, and his list will hang off just a little, but I think that adds an extra little touch. So there are cute Mr. and Mrs. Claus Christmas tags. I hope you give these a try. I think they're really fun. They add just a special touch to your presents, but they're pretty quick and easy, so you could make a whole bunch. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please check out my channel. I have card tutorials and product reviews for you, and I hope you have a very happy holiday. This is Heather. Bye.